We'll be using, we'll be reading many of the questions as we possibly can and responding to those from the question and comment card. In the time we have left for the next 25 minutes or so, we're going to respond. Dr. Grimace and I are going to go back and forth and respond as many of those as possible. A lot of comment cards saying let's have an open forum. That's not going to be our protocol. That would not. I'm going to remind you we're going to be respectful and we're going to follow that protocol. And I appreciate your cooperation.
And are we going to have filibusters on the answers?
In all due respect, if you can't follow the process, we're not going to be able to move through this. I'm going to ask you to please follow the process. Listen to the question.
You set the process, not the taxpayer.
I'm going to need you, sir. If you cannot stop, we're going to have to ask you to leave. If you can't stop, we're going to have to ask you to leave.
Why is this the process?
Yeah, why is this a process? We're like the study hall, right? We're now around a card and passing it to you, you read it back.
Again, I'm going to start reading the questions. Dr. Grimace is going to start reading the questions. We're going to answer as many.
Well, just answer that.
Process.
Just answer that question. Just answer that question.
First question.
Maybe you'll get that. That's what.
First question. Why are we not at least? Excuse me. Let me make sure I'm reading this right. Why are not at least a few community family representatives allowed to speak openly at the meeting? Just answer that.
Oh, come on.
How is an effective traffic study done in the summer? I think, let me see if I can find John Baraff. I'll try to answer as best I can. John, you make your way towards the front. I appreciate your assistance with this so we can answer this as thoroughly as possible. We will be looking at working with some consultants that specialize in this work to have an outside party that comes in and looks at the shape files from the draft as we're working on those to make sure transportation is done as efficiently and make sure we're not missing anything in that process. John, anything you want to add to that?
The consultants and us as well will be using NCDOT gathered data on traffic counts on roadways. So we're not going to stand out there and do the counts here during the summer. That's not the intent. NCDOT has a broad depth of data and information that we'll be using to reference as the baseline for it.
What's the consultant you guys love? Why wasn't that done before the building sites were bought?
Multiple times it's been stated that feeder patterns would not be disrupted. Can you explain why East Southern Pines is being sent north for middle school, which would be Cranes Creek, I presume, to come back to Pinecrest? There's a total of 66 students as a whole, K through 5, that this will affect. An unfortunate outcome of us having 140% capacity at West Pine Middle School and then almost just under 100% capacity at Southern Middle is that the total number of children already exceeds the capacities of the two schools combined. So there has been no choice so far in this process in order to equalize the number of middle school children we have. We've made a very conscious effort to try to move as many children into Cranes Creek and New Century as we could. For that reason, we attempted to get both of those as far over 90% as we can, and as you can see, we still have a remnant of children that are going to have to go all the way out to Cranes Creek, in some cases travel pretty far to New Century. That's the explanation for draft 2.
Next question. When locations for the new schools were selected, future growth was looked at and considered, not just current density. So I'm going to ask Mike Miller if he would respond to that.
Yes, the sites for future school locations were generated by an optimization program from the Operations Research and Education Lab at NC State. And yes, future growth is always considered in generating sites for new schools. When they go out to try to find land for a new school, is it always on the right dot? No, it's not. You have to look at the suitability of the land, the acreage, how long or how much it's going to take to develop it. So there's other factors, but yes, future growth was a primary factor in determining where the new schools are.
Are the criteria weighted? That would be the guidance principles. So the guidance principles weighted. My impression is that you chose efficiency over the other. It really depends on where you look. There are cases where efficiency trumps other principles, and that would be, in particular, right above the circle, the decision to have Village Acres and number 6 go back to West Pine Middle School. In draft number 1, there had not been an analysis, an in-depth analysis of transportation to the extent that we have now, because we needed to have a draft before we could do that. There are a number of different prototypes that are looked at for each line before a draft comes out, and so it's not practical to be able to, other than look at the bird's eye view of transportation. It's difficult to weigh the impact on transportation when you come out with the first draft. The second draft, as you've been able to see tonight, carries a heavier burden on transportation. Now, to the extent that maybe we've gone too far with that, and we violated the others, that'll be reviewed again before we come out with draft for the fall.
What progress has been made to improve Southern Middle School? Again, Dr. Grimsey kind of related to his response to the earlier question. There's been a lot of the progress that's been made at Southern Middle has been in utilization, usage, and balance among our middle schools, West Pine Middle, Southern Middle, Cranes Creek, New Century, and bringing as much balance as we can in utilization there. As Laura noted in her presentation, there was not a significant improvement in other balanced areas of demographics like minority percentage and proficiency. There's some, but not significant. So that's what's in draft 2, that's what it has.
That was my question, and that wasn't what I asked. What improvements have done to improve this school above AD?
I'll answer that next, Dr. Grimsey.
Oh, we're going to balance that out, aren't we?
Define balancing demographics. If you look at the left-hand column on the chart, you'll see the minority column. And what we look at secondary to utilization is proficiency and minority. We're obligated to do that. We look at that to see what we can do to try to come up with more balance on demographics. But as you can see from draft 1 to draft 2, we probably had more schools that went the other way towards the current array of minority than we moved towards the desired balance between them. So basically, balancing demographics is about that left-hand column on the chart.
How is that relevant, though?
You know the Supreme
That's
Court.
not what the question
The
is.
Supreme Court knocked that down in 2013. It's
We're going to remind you to please, the second warning, we remind you to please honor the process. I misinterpreted the question, so I want to clarify what's been done to improve Southern Middle. Southern Middle has had it's an incredible school led by Principal Marcy Cooper. They have a school improvement plan. We noted that earlier. That can be accessed online to look at their specific areas of focus. They've had incredible improvements in growth. If you look over multiple years, they've had improvements in culture, student culture, staff culture. But I would encourage you to have individual conversations with Marcy Cooper, and I encourage you to set up a time to come visit Southern Middle School. I know Principal Cooper would love to host you. Okay.
All right, this next one is the same question that Dr. Locklear just received. This question here is, has property value and ability to resell a home and property in a school outside the community been addressed? Selling a home in a high-demand area and community zone for a school is neither. I'm going to just accept that as a statement as much as a question. There's no way that we can really enter that into the considerations. That's not one of the guiding principles, and so at this point that's the only answer I can give other than to just enter it in as a statement for consideration by the committee.
So when you guys lose tax revenue,
The next question is, what are options for students? Sir, I will remind you, second warning, please respect the process. What are the options for students in contained classrooms, self-contained classrooms that would have to transfer to these schools? Our exceptional children or special education population is looked at and what best serves their needs. That's required by law, by federal and state laws and policies. And so we always look at what our special ed population, the uniqueness of that situation, and where they're best served based on where they are in different areas of our county. And we do that currently, and we will continue to do that.
Will additional teachers be hired to keep class sizes lower at all schools? The answer is yes, as much as possible. The main thing you want to do when you are redrawing school lines is to make sure that pupil-teacher ratios stay at least at the level where they were before you got started.
Why is Aberdeen Elementary planned to be at 75% capacity when there are high-density neighborhoods 2 miles from the school being sent to Pinehurst 94 to 98% capacity, i.e. Lake Pinehurst. Laura hit on that in her presentation. Aberdeen is one of the elementary schools where there's planned growth over the future. So that's one of the reasons why Aberdeen area is being looked at in planning for that. And while that is our lower utilization in this current draft than Pinehurst Elementary School.
How many current children from Pinehurst Elementary will actually be moved to the Pinehurst Elementary? And that question, I'm sure, comes from the fact that the chart only shows percentages. And so to be honest, I don't know the answer to that. Mike Miller, is there any way to have an answer for that tonight?
I asked for that in the advisory council meeting, the impact data.
Okay.
And I think you do have it because you showed it at the advisory council meeting.
Do you have that tonight?
He does have that.
Tonight?
It is not currently in the data governor.
Okay, so I have that tonight. And then if I might, Tim, have you considered the traffic at the resort traffic circle from the lake traffic going into Pinehurst? And I think the honest answer is that that has not, I'm not aware that that has been looked at yet, at least for draft 2.
A couple related questions to that, so I'm not going to repeat those, but then a question about how many children, again, the impact data, and we can work to add that in future addendums. Why are you redistricting Pinehurst Elementary School when, according to the pilot, the new school will have 780, if left alone, only 630 will attend the school. Again, the driving factors behind redistricting across the county is driven by utilization and using as much of that utilization and balancing that across the schools. Pinehurst being reopened or redesigned is built as an 800-student elementary school.
How will the divide in the community be mitigated when my community no longer represents me? This is a challenge that you always have when you're redrawing lines. You've already established communities, and now you're disrupting communities, and that's the basis of a lot of the concern that people have in addition to the concern for their own children. In the earlier question I read, the individual said that we had said we would not break feeder patterns. If we did that, that was sort of an overstatement. We try not to do that as best as we can. And as Laura indicated on the slide, that was an attempt that we made, and we had minimal, just one beneficial effect from that. We'll continue to do what we can to try to preserve feeder patterns, but utilization is going to probably weigh at least as heavily as that, and that's always going to be a bit of a challenge. So when it comes to community, if a community is divided because of this process, then the challenge would be for that particular school and that community to just redefine community and try to rebuild what it is that's healthy for that school and the surrounding area.
How will you address the loss of programs such as Title I and other programs like orchestra for students who would be moved to schools without orchestra? Equity in programs is something that we will be looking at throughout this process. We've noted that in other community meetings. It's a little too early to determine if there would be any loss of programs like Title I, but that's something we have to look at in equity programs as we move through this, and that's something I know our school board is committed to.
Would you please run the numbers for CCNC and the neighborhoods off Monticello to see if the data will change at all? This area does not have enough children to drastically change the data, so you could just leave it as it is. We have run the data on that, and again, if I don't know the numbers off the top of my head, please forgive me, but it is substantial enough to matter. And also, you have to look across the entire county. There are other moves that are similar to that one, where where neighborhoods or communities are being moved, where there might even be fewer children than that. So you have to sort of balance what's the impact of a given community against the needs for the whole. And that's part of the stress of the process all the way through, and CCNC and the Monticello area are no exception.
Really, a little more of a comment and a question, but the increased traffic on Monticello cannot be accommodated. Future hurt property value and negative impact of school change. The traffic analysis is something that we'll be looking overall with what we're working from draft 2. So that is part of that traffic analysis and look at the traffic patterns.
My child is in the AIG program and has excelled. The school he is moving to does not have an AIG class, just a teacher that is included. There's an inclusion approach to AIG at the new school that assists with teachers. Will a program be made to accommodate my child's needs? AIG assignments are based on the number of children in a given school, but also inclusion is a practice that's being used more and more. We're seeing fewer and fewer pull-out programs in both gifted and exceptional children's services. So it's really difficult to tell what the future is because the answer is dependent on a variety of factors. But to the extent that we have the children, then we'll increase. And so it would be good for Cranes Creek to get more children because if that percentage of AIG children follow with that, then odds are that there will be more children and that would increase the AIG services in that school in accordance with the number of children in the building.
Again, one more comment and question. If West End is growing more rapidly than Southern Pines and Pinehurst, why not move the Southern Middle Line from traffic circle along to 11th edge of Pinewell? This will include VOP families, Village of Pinehurst families, and Southern Middle and help the demographics issue. You know, certainly valid feedback is something that will continue to be looked at.
If West Pine Middle School is growing, why not run the middle school line along raise it to 211 to Pinewell? This would put the few children in Pinehurst Village at Southern Middle School. I'm going to take that as a suggestion and take it under consideration. Right now, I have to look at the metrics of that. Just accept it as it is.
Again, a little more of a comment here. Currently, the middle school boundary line awkwardly divides the Pinehurst and Lake Pinehurst neighborhood. Again, valid feedback. Appreciate that feedback and will be continued to be considered.
Will the traffic study for draft 3 account for infrastructure changes on Midland Road east of the Pinehurst traffic circle? There are some examples that are cited here. I would tell you, since you've written it down here, the answer is yes.
What are the number?
Oh, happy to do that. Closure of cut-throughs on Midland and how that impacts Pinehurst residents, the students who live north of Midland Road but east of the traffic circle and are now zoned for the new Southern Pines Elementary School. I have to glance at the map with that one, but the bottom line is if it's there, it will be considered as we move forward.
I have a question here. Where is the balance and stability for the students? Certainly that is something that we try to look at. Part of one of those guiding principles is looking at what stability we can offer over time, feeder patterns, etc. So that's something we continue to consider.
Can you discuss the safety of the location of the new Pinehurst Elementary School? What measures have been taken to ensure safety? I'd have to give it over to actually Saccone. What we do know is that the design of the school inherently establishes a far more safe and secure environment for our children at Pinehurst than what we currently have. So that we know it's going to be safer and more secure than the situation as it now stands. And we do know that staff has worked very hard with the Pinehurst police to make sure that that's a very safe and secure school, and I can vouch for that when I visit there.
Why do the neighborhoods in Pinehurst with the most money, property value, i.e. number 9, get more say than those in Lake Forest area, Pinehurst? Why do they get what they want? I can say that the drafts of the student assignment plan, the work with our advisory committee is driven by those guiding principles. It's driven by the guiding principles of looking at utilization across the area with our elementary schools, middle and high, driven by the other guiding principles of efficiency, of planning, and community. And that's what is driving this process.
If you're trying to keep neighborhoods together, why split Pinehurst down the middle for middle school? As of draft 2, the honest answer is we don't have any choice. As I indicated earlier, the total number of children that we have in West Pine Middle and Southern Middle School exceed the combined capacities of the two schools. And so West Pine Middle currently has a higher number of children, a higher percentage It's not sustainable. We can't continue to grow at West Pine Middle given the capacity that we have at 700. So children have to move, but Southern Middle School doesn't have that much room. And so you can see when you look at the metrics how we've struggled with that. And that's the reason why we're compelled to move children from Southern Pines to Cranes Creek, and then children from Cranes Creek actually moving up to New Century. That's a difficult call at this point. I think that even for those of you that are very unhappy with the process, we've really struggled with that one. I bet we're going to continue to struggle with that all the way to the end.
Who will be the new Southern Pines Elementary principal? That's a question that we've heard and we're sensitive to. We were able to make the decision on who the Aberdeen Elementary principal was going to be with Mr. Poole in an early fashion because Dr. Capps was named as the new principal to open up the Deeds Creek Elementary. We have two wonderful principals at Southern Pines Primary, Ms. Wagner, at Southern Pines Elementary, with Dr. Bowie. We're looking forward to making that decision as soon as we possibly can as things progress and we have some more information as we move forward in the future.
In 2014, there was a plan to add an addition at West Pine Elementary School. This could have prevented all of the 38% of kids from being reassigned. It was only $1.2 million, 1% of a $103 million bond. Please explain why this was not included in the bond. That's a very good question. We tried to keep that in the bond considerations as far into the process as we could. But as it turns out, in hindsight, the addition of those classrooms would have taken West Pine Elementary School's classroom capacity above the core capacity of the school. And so, in hindsight, looking back, we'd have to re-examine that because we'd have to extend the cafeteria and some of the other services that we have. It's not beyond reason that we could come back to that in the future. But the thing I would add for tonight's purposes, as we discussed draft 2, is that we also have to look at planning. And we know that the West Pine Elementary School community is a very rapidly growing community. And so whether or not we accommodate the existing number, we also have to accommodate those that are going, the growth that we have in the future. So West Pine Elementary, there's been a conscious effort to try to move children to another school. And Pinehurst has so far provided that opportunity as long as children are moving out of Southern Pines and moving further east. But it's a very good question. Appreciate you asking.
What tax implications have been evaluated in the plan? I assume that may be connected also to property value. That's a difficult one to predict because there's many things that can impact property value. And I'm not an expert on that, but I can tell you that we continue to try to keep utilizing those guiding principles as we move through the process to keep it as balanced as possible.
In yesterday's board work session, Mr. Brass said the traffic study would focus on bus patterns, not parent traffic patterns. I don't recall exactly what Mr. Brass said, but he said that statement was more limited than my understanding of what we're going to be doing. It's my understanding and my expectation that the traffic study that we do in these next couple of months will certainly include all aspects of transportation as much as we can, information we have about traffic congestion.
The study done in the middle of summer.
Why not? And remind you to lead into the process. Why not have the middle school line? Why not have the middle school line run from the traffic circle along 211 to include all of Pinehurst at Southern Middle School? That's that question. I've heard that question several times tonight. I'm sure it's been recorded here several times tonight, and that's a question that we need to look at as we continue to look at what comes out in the final draft.
With all of the Area 3 middle schools and all 3 high schools remaining overcrowded after redistricting, what does redistricting actually accomplish? There's a couple questions here. I would say that I share the frustration in the class, but I would add that I'm going to go one question at a time on this. I'm going to stick with this. I'll read one. So I would acknowledge that there's a certain degree of disappointment that we can't get everything answered with the construction of just a couple of elementary schools and the redistricting process. But we have had the opportunity here to try to redesign the feeder patterns and to look at trying to level out the growth in a broader number of school district areas as best as we can and buy ourselves some time in order to get to the next referendum, when definitely we need to be looking at our middle schools and high schools and even a couple of our elementary schools. The next question was, and why were the 4 elementary schools built? Well, in fact, they were built to create the opportunity to redistribute our school population in ways where, A, we can educate the children in the traditional district that feeds into those schools, but also look for opportunities to address some of the other schools that are overcrowded. And so building a large school that ends up having capacity in it really compels us to move the children around and to balance it among the schools that are crowded. The traditional schools are still there, they're still overcrowded. Didn't you need to build at least one middle school and one high school? And I can only say yes. I wish we could have built more than what we did. We went as far as we could. You might recall that we actually had put out for bids on an advanced career center that was intended to create opportunities for children at Union Pines and Northmore and Pinecrest to take classes during the day. We've benefited greatly from the Sandhills Community College Promise program, where a lot of children are actually taking classes in their junior and senior year. We really could have used the Advanced Career Center, and yes, we could have used some more middle school and high school capacity, and certainly I know that'll be a priority going forward.
We have time for one final question. I cannot understand why you have now taken number 6 in Village Acres back to West Pine. They go through traffic circle to high school, Pinecrest, so what's the difference? The logic behind that in this current draft is, again, utilizing that efficiency principle and looking at the additional traffic congestion, the middle schoolers going through the traffic circle towards Southern Middle. So that was the logic behind that. However, this is going to continue to be looked at as we move forward planning for the next draft that will come out. I want to thank everybody for coming out tonight, for continued engagement. Remind you of everything that you posted online as well as the online portal. You can continue to give feedback throughout the process.
Will the format be different next time?
There isn't enough because they like telling us to sit down, shut up, and color. That's what they like doing. Hey, come on,